We are all yours for one more Sunday. Okay, here we go.
All right. Thank you. Yes, I'm sure you're all very excited about having Reverend Sandy there in the coming month. Is it month or 2 months?
Three
Three.
months.
Okay, 3 months. Okay, great. That's fantastic. So happy to hear that. So, what a blessing. All right. Well, I'm going to start today with meditation and then we'll go into the message. So, I invite you to all find a comfortable position and to focus your attention on your breath. If you have a special way to relax with your breathing by taking deep breaths, feel free to do that. Or simply become mindful. This breath that nourishes the life in our bodies, this breath is connected to the atmosphere that surrounds the whole earth. This breath that we breathe with each other, with all people, with all living creatures. We experience our breathing as we feel it and are mindful of it. We realize that we are truly one divine life, one with all humanity, all creatures, the earth, the sun, the whole field of the cosmos. We realize that we are one with God. I invite you to let that be your focus for a few moments. A simple thought: I am one with God. So much meaning and power in this truth. Just as I am one with the universe, I am one with God. That word, God, has many different meanings, different people. What does it mean to you? For you, does God mean just the natural universe? Or is there more? Do you realize that in your oneness with God, your consciousness is part of the consciousness of God? Do you realize that in your oneness with God, the love you feel for others is one with the infinite love of God? I am one with God. I am one with the source of all knowledge, all understanding, all wisdom. Whenever I have choices to make, I can turn to this inner presence, realize I am one, the infinite knowledge, understanding, and wisdom of God. In knowing this oneness, we become receptive to the deepest level of guidance or intuition or understanding that is within us, and we open ourselves to divine guidance and one with the wisdom of God. If you are in need of guidance right now, you can trust this perfect wisdom of God is now revealing the way forward, the way through. It may come in this very moment. It may come in a moment you least expect it. You can rest in confidence and comfort that you are one with the wisdom of God, and that guidance is now coming to you from within you. And we can hold others in this same truth. We are one with those we love and those we think of. They too are one with God, the wisdom of God. So we can release them, knowing that truth is the same for them as it is for us. You are one with the wisdom of God. Your guidance is assured. And one with the perfect life of God. Experience this life when I'm mindful of my breathing, when I'm mindful of the energy and the strength, vitality that is in my body. The more I focus my attention on this energy, the more fully I experience it. So you take a moment now to simply feel the energy that flows through you in every part of this body. Crown of your head to the soles of your feet, arms and your fingertip, and every part of you. There's this divine life, this divine energy, this consciousness of being, this perfect life. The life of God is infinite, complete, harmonious, perfect. I am one with the perfect life of God. And now release any fear, any false ideas of discord. I release that in the awareness that I am one with the perfect life of God. This is the omnipresent healing activity, harmonizing activity, energy of the infinite. I am one, the perfect life of God. Again, we can hold this for others. You are one with the perfect life of God. If you are praying with someone for healing, visualize them and see them filled with energy and vitality and new strength and harmony. This visualization is a truer picture, the reality of their being, the reality that God is expressing in and through them right now. You are one with the perfect life of God. I am one with the infinite prospering ideas of God. All that we call supply, prosperity, wealth, provision, it all comes from the ideas of substance, the ideas of abundance, the infinite mind that God is. And one with the infinite prospering ideas of God. We can trust that the source of the universe, the reality of our being, provides for our every need and more. So we simply open ourselves to this truth and trust That abundance is now flowing from within us, through us, and to us. I am one with the infinite prospering ideas of God. Have some particular needs, you can visualize that as being fulfilled, as having it right now, for truly it is here, now, within you and unfolding through you and being attracted to you. I am one with the infinite prospering ideas of God. You hold the same truth for others. You are one with the infinite prospering ideas of God. Divine nature is limitless love and perfect peace. We now are aware that we are in a state of love and peace. And this love and peace that we feel and know is the presence of God within us. We know is latent everywhere for everyone to experience. So we trust our connection with the global consciousness that as we focus on love and peace, that is the reality of God, they too have that within them. And this is a way we pray for world peace and harmony. We are one with the infinite love and perfect peace of God. Hold this for ourselves and for all others. We are one with the infinite love and perfect peace of God. And this consciousness of divine wisdom, divine love and peace, infinite source of supply and perfect life, we are freed from all anxiety. We are freed from all fear. We experience bubbling up within us the joy of the divine good that is everywhere present. And we are grateful. Consciousness of this truth, so it is. Amen. I invite you to once again become conscious of your breathing and to turn our attention to some more ideas. Today's topic is the infinite universal mind and you. So right now, whatever you have your attention on is your experience, is in a sense your reality. Whatever you have your conscious attention on. So your conscious attention right now is probably on, first of all, sensations. These are ideas in your conscious mind, conscious of your body, the sensation of your body, the sensations of sight and sound all around you and the place where you are, the sensations of looking at the screen, if you're looking at this screen right now, hearing the sound of my voice. This is part of your current conscious experience, right? And at the same time, there may be thoughts in your mind that mingle in your consciousness with these sensations. Our minds multitask. You may have thoughts about what I'm saying, or you may be thinking about something completely different that's going on in your life. But those thoughts can coexist with our sensations. But as they do, of course, we're not as conscious of our sensations, right? Not as focused on our thoughts if had simply tried to shut out the sensory world. So that's happening in your conscious mind. But also, there may be from time to time memories or imagery that bubbles up from the subconscious into your conscious awareness. Right? So your conscious mind is always interacting with, mingling with the subconscious mind in form of memories or images, even ideas or inventions. And meanwhile, just by being here now at this meeting, you are manifesting archetypal ideas of the collective unconscious. We come together as a community, we have some common ground, and some of that common ground is really in some of these archetypal ideas. For example, my experience of unity people has been that they have a pretty strong representation of the caregiver archetype that we mentioned last week. Right? We care about others, care for others, hold others in a consciousness of love. And another archetype that seems to be part of the general unity consciousness anyway is the sage, right? The sage loves knowledge, loves wisdom, shares knowledge and wisdom. And so right now, these archetypes are in effect manifesting through you, even if you're not conscious of it. It's a part of what you are. So in other words, there is a lot going on in your mental experience right now, right? You're interacting with these different phases of consciousness. Your conscious mind is mingling with your subconscious and with the collective consciousness, the collective unconsciousness. You choose where to let your mental attention linger, and wherever it lingers, that is your experience in the moment. And even though all this stuff is happening at the same time in your conscious experience, or the conscious thoughts and sensations and subconscious stuff and collective unconscious stuff, there's another level, the infinite universal mind. The infinite universal mind contains and pervades all these dimensions of mind and more. Because we've just been, or last week I was just talking about the global consciousness, which is basically consciousness is experienced by and relevant to human beings on this planet. I think it's highly probable that there are beings much like us on other planets. The universe is so vast, and the laws and the substance of the universe, if you will, are the same everywhere. So it seems likely to me that there are other planetary global consciousnesses, if you will, right? And I haven't even talked about the animals, because animals share in consciousness. Now, an animal's consciousness is probably other species. The consciousness of other species is not just like our experience, but probably has some things in common with it. Sensation, for example. They communicate, so there's something else going, some kind of intelligence also going on there in other animals, but it's very different than ours, right? Philosopher Thomas Nagel wrote a famous essay, well, famous among philosophers, called "What Is It Like to Be a Bat?" Kind of the whole point of of his essay was that we as a human species, we have a sense of what it's like to be a human. We know what it's like to be a human. We don't really know what it's like to be a bat in terms of the consciousness of the bat. Well, anyway, so I take it that the global consciousness includes animals, and that the universal consciousness includes whatever other beings there may be throughout the universe. Well, I am, of course, assuming in this that there's an infinite universal mind and that that is the reality of everything. And this is an idea that obviously is not new with me or not new to you. Right? This idea of God as infinite and as mind or spirit has been around for a very long time, obviously. Right? It's an idea that is affirmed in religions and philosophies all around the world. Now, even though this idea is in effect omnipresent, there's no really compelling logical argument in philosophy or theology that has proven this idea. And I think part of the issue of that is that theologians and philosophers have tended to define God too narrowly in their arguments. So, for example, they argue that God is first cause, right? Or they argue that God is an unmoved mover. Well, those arguments aren't logically compelling, and even though they make a certain amount of sense to us, they are not entirely convincing. Counter arguments have been, established for most of these kinds of arguments for the existence of God. God is infinite mind, right? And we also can add to the evidence, if you will, for infinite mind, uh, modern physics. There have been notable scientists who have inferred from their knowledge of the universe that the universe is mind, thought stuff, mind stuff. But these, of course, are not, even though these are physicists, notable physicists who hold these ideas, they're not something that's been proven by science. They're something that these scientists sort of philosophically infer from what they know about the nature of the universe. So we can say the nature of the universe is consistent with the idea, even though it may not provide absolute proof of it. I actually think the best proof is one that's not really that I've noticed has ever been offered, but it's suggested by a lot of different philosophers. And that is this idea that mathematical truths are realities. That is to say, mathematical truths are real ideas, real, not necessarily existent in our normal sense of existent, but real nevertheless. There are those who, there are philosophers and mathematicians who believe in what's called mathematical realism, and there are others who don't. There are some who think that mathematics are simply invented by the human mind. However, I don't find that very compelling position. I know that the symbols of mathematics are invented by humans because they're invented in different places in different languages. There have been a number of different symbols for these truths, but the symbols represent something, a reality, in the same way that our words represent objects of experience, what we think of as the physical objects of our experience. So the mathematical language is different from the mathematical truth. It, in a sense, refers to it. But the point is, there is this idea that is, I think, is very compelling, although again, not universally accepted, that mathematical ideas are true ideas, and that makes them real, and that these real ideas have effects. You might recall I mentioned last week, maybe you won't, but I'll remind you, that Carl Jung regarded numbers also as being archetypes, as being real with real qualities. So he was a mathematical realist. And I could add to that list Pythagoras and Plato, a more contemporary great mathematician, Kurt Gödel. And I can add to that at least one of our co-founders, I think both, really, but it's certainly Charles Fillmore is fairly explicit about this idea, mathematical truths. Well, if there are true ideas, and there's an infinite number of them, which there is in mathematics, that means that there must be an infinite mind with infinite ideas, right? Now, mathematical ideas aren't necessarily the only ones, but we can point to this and say, okay, these are real ideas, therefore, there must be a real mind, because the nature of ideas is that they are, when we say, elements of mind. And these ideas have potential energy, if you will. In other words, by the scientific definition of energy, ideas are real, they have potential energy. It's not stuff, but rather a capacity to do things, a capacity to do work, as the scientists usually describe it. So, for example, the idea, or the maybe multiple ideas that you had, motivated you to attend this meeting, right? Motivated you to do something. So there's a potential energy in these ideas that brought you here today, right? And we can say that about all kinds of human activities. The idea for a book inspires the writing of the book. The idea for a book has a potential energy that moves the author or the writer. Scientific truths, scientific ideas inspire ways to use them, right? So we understand, once we understand electricity, then ultimately an electric light bulb can be invented. When we understand nuclear fission and fusion, nuclear energy becomes a possibility, right? Or a manifestation, right? So the ideas have an energy within themselves that move things into action. Ideas have real effects because they have a capacity to do work. They have energy. They are real. And so I firmly believe that the fundamental nature of the universe is an infinite mind with its infinite ideas. And that's, in effect, everything. All the other mind dimensions that I've been talking about, the collective, the subconscious, your conscious, all these mind dimensions emanate from and are included within the infinite mind. We know this because the word infinite means all encompassing. There's nothing outside of it. One of my favorite philosophers was George Berkeley. I love this passage, the thing that he said. He said, all the choir of heaven and furniture of the earth are ideas in infinite mind. In a word, all those bodies which compose the mighty frame of the world have not any subsistence without a mind. I just love that expression. The choir of heaven and the furniture of earth are ideas in infinite mind. This means that all of our perceptions, our thoughts and feelings are part of that all encompassing mind. Our subconscious and the collective unconscious are part of it. The whole is different from the parts. The whole experience of infinite mind is something in somehow qualitatively, and we might even say quantitatively, different from our ordinary conscious experience. So in effect, the experience of the whole of infinite mind is not like our ordinary consciousness. It must be, I believe, most like, as far as we can understand it humanly, most like the mystical experience. The mystical experience is reportedly, supposedly, an experience of union with the divine, with this infinite mind, or with this ultimate reality. So, infinite mind as a whole affects, but is not necessarily affected by the other dimensions of individual and global consciousness. So, for example, the nature of true archetypal ideas in the collective unconscious, as Jung theorized them, we talked about, maybe some of you thought about what archetypes do I represent, right? Well, those ideas cannot be changed by our conscious sensations or thoughts. In other words, the flow of, if you want to call it cause and effect, only runs one way. Those ideas generate. So, for example, the, the 2 times 2 cannot be made to equal anything other than 4 by thinking that it equals something else. So no matter how much we want to concentrate on the idea that 2 times 2 is 6, that's not going to make it true. That's not going to affect the truth. Eternal truth remains truth whether or not we believe it. So our thoughts don't affect the archetypes, but the archetypes affect our conscious thought. The flow works one way. And the nature of the archetypes cannot be changed by our personal subconscious, by our memories. Okay? The archetypes affect our dreams, right? That's part of how Jung discovered uh, archetypes. But our dreams do not affect the archetypes. Again, the flow is one way between the collective subconscious and the personal unconscious. So infinite mind then knows, contains everything, and we could even say generates everything. It generates, we could say it contains or generates the archetypes of the collective unconscious, but the archetypes cannot change the nature of the infinite mind. So again, it's a one-way flow of possibility. The flow of there is, of course, a sort of two-way flow between our conscious and our subconscious mind, and to some extent, even between our conscious and collective consciousness, and in the sense that collective consciousness also includes all human memory. The flow of reality is from the infinite mind to the global or collective consciousness, to the individual subconscious, to the conscious phase of mind. So our experience is an emergence from this immense, infinite depth of this majestic, indescribable mind. Individual conscious and subconscious can therefore produce experiences. Individual conscious and subconscious can produce experiences that are not aligned with the truth of infinite mind. So we can experience, another way to put this, we can experience illusions. So again, we could go through our lives believing that 2 times 2 equals 6. That would, again, would not change the truth. Nevertheless, it would affect our experience. If we went through our lives thinking all the time that 2 times 2 equals 6, think of what that would do to your finances. Right? Think of how we use mathematics in a practical way, and getting that idea wrong can create all kinds of havoc in your life, I think, potentially, right? But it would not change the truth. It would change your experience, but it would not change the nature of truth in the infinite mind. Likewise, and probably more seriously, we can affirm and believe that we are separate from each other. Right? We divide ourselves into tribes and races and religions, right? And we think we're separate, or that we're separate from life. We're separate from our resources. We're separate from health, right? We can hold those beliefs. And even though they're false beliefs, they affect our experiences, right? But they do not change the truth. They do not change the truth of our essential unity with all people, with the cosmos, with the perfect ideas of divine mind. We may think we're separate from or lacking in health or supply, and our experience can be affected by that. It doesn't change the truth that we are one with the perfect life of God, that we are one with the infinite substance and supply of God. The truth doesn't change regardless of what we may experience as a result of erroneous beliefs. So we might affirm and believe that the universe is unbalanced or fundamentally inharmonious or hostile. What was it Einstein said? I believe that God is subtle, but he is not malicious, right? Sometimes people might think that because of their own experiences. So we can affirm and believe and even maybe experience the world that way. Those beliefs affect what we experience, but they do not change reality. They do not change the truth. So when we talk about the truth, know the truth, and the truth will set you free, that's, partly what that means. When we know the truth of balance and harmony, the perfection of infinite mind, the omnipresence of perfect life and substance, when we get attuned to that, when that becomes our fundamental consciousness, then that becomes our fundamental experience. We know as human beings, we fluctuate on that. We sometimes have our doubts and so on, and we can get false ideas, and that can affect our experience. So the point is, if we continue to seek the truth does set us free. If we firm and believe the truth, omnipresent wholeness and unity and love and harmony and life, abundant supply and peace, those truths dissolve the errors in our subconscious and in our conscious experience. So this is what we seek to do, right? In unity. All individual perceptions are finite parts of the universal perception, another way of looking at it. So our thinking and feeling and willing are all parts of the universal mind, but the universal mind is not affected by the erroneous ideas and the erroneous and the experiences that we have that are not consistent with truth, the universal mind as a whole. So our false beliefs and the experiences that accompany them are, in effect, like shadows. Right? Shadows appear to be real, but they are not independent realities. They are fundamentally appearances, and that's kind of what our false beliefs are and our experiences that come from them. They're shadows, they're appearances, but they're not the reality. So the individual and global consciousness can expand within, in a sense, within the infinite mind. That is, we can grow in knowledge. Our minds can expand into the knowledge of the infinite mind. As we grow in love, we experience more of the infinite love, of the infinite mind, or the idea of the consciousness of unity. We are not creating more knowledge and love. We are expanding our experience of the infinite mind, individually and collectively, because each time an individual has a realization of truth, it becomes part of the collective consciousness. And so by holding in a consciousness of health and harmony and abundance and happiness, we contribute to the health, harmony, abundance, and happiness of the whole human race and the human experience. One individual at a time, one might say, but it's more than one individual, right? So when we have these realizations of spiritual truth, they become, say, part of what Unity calls the superconscious or a Christ mind, right? We attain that Christ consciousness, superconsciousness, through our contact with the universal mind. We cannot realize spiritual truth by focusing on our sensations. Spiritual truth is not an object to be seen or touched any more than a mathematical principle or a scientific law is an object to be touched. It's something to be realized. To experience our true nature, the divinity or the Christ within, we must turn our attention away from sensations to the Christ ideas or the ideas of the presence of divinity within us. This concentration on the Christ or inner divinity, by whatever name we call it, expands our experience of that innate divinity that is part of what we are, in a sense, the reality of what we are. Talk about the word realization, it fundamentally means to make something real. So when you realize a truth, you feel it and know it, it becomes real for you. It's been real all along, but now you have found it. The individual consciousness can merge with or experience the universal mind as it is, even if only briefly, in the mystic experience. That's why I emphasize mysticism. It is an experience of the universal mind that we're connected with. The evidence for this, of course, is in the writings of the great mystics of all traditions. Well, that's a whole course in and of itself, obviously, but I'll just mention one of the great writers, students of mysticism was a man named F.C. Happold. Happold, like William James, examined uh, mysticism through the ages throughout the world in the world traditions, found the common characteristics of the experience. Right? I think I mentioned these before. Ineffability, in other words, we can't quite describe it, but nevertheless, it has a noetic quality, which means it's a kind of knowing, right? A knowing that sticks with us. The experience itself is transient. In other words, it generally lasts for a relatively brief period of time. We don't stay in that consciousness exactly, even though it lingers with us. It is a passive experience in the sense that it's not something that we intentionally cause to happen, but something that in effect comes upon us, that in effect overwhelms our conscious state of mind. It is, Happold goes on to say, a consciousness of oneness is characteristic, a sense of timelessness, that time in some sense is an illusion, which kind of a lot of physicists are starting to think too, right? There is also in this mystical experience a conviction that the phenomenal ego, the way we think of ourselves, is not the real self. The real self is divine. And we can add to this list of Happold and William James also the idea of bliss and even the ideas of love, that this experience is frequently described as an experience of bliss, a kind of lingering bliss that comes after the experience, as well as a consciousness of love. So I'll briefly review the three key mystical practices, just to remind you of them, even though I know that you already know them. First one is to seek truth beyond appearances. So this is typical in all the mystical traditions. This sometimes takes the form of denying the self of sensory pleasures. So to get sort of detached from appearances. And sometimes this is done in moderation by mystics, and sometimes it's extreme, such as long periods of fasting. But the main point is if we're mainly focused on experiencing pleasure in the sense world, we cannot move our attention to the truth. So at some point, a shift has to be made, right? The seeking of truth beyond appearances, first one. Second one is to cultivate love, right? So this is also found as you celebrate every Sunday with the candle lighting ceremony, that all the traditions have this teaching of love. So all religious traditions do, but of course it's also part of the mystical thread that runs through all those traditions. And is not simply a moral concept or a set of rules or an attitude or a feeling. It's not fundamentally that. Cultivating love is seeking this consciousness of universal oneness, our sense of connection and interconnection. And that consciousness, one lives in more and more in the consciousness of love. It's very nearly the same thing as the consciousness of God itself, of the infinite mind. Very nearly the same thing as being and living in the mystical experience. So love is very important in mysticism. And the other thing, of course, the other key is regular meditation, which is fundamentally concentration on ideas of good, whatever your ideas of good or God are. So there's that threefold process that we go through. We relax. We might do that by focusing on our breathing or just affirming that we're relaxed and at peace. That's one stage of concentration. Second is to put our attention on the ideas of good, of God or love, whatever idea most resonates with you in the moment in terms of the nature of the good, the one that you want to concentrate on. So you put your attention on that idea. And then, of course, meditation is a sustaining your consciousness on that idea, allowing it to unfold in your feelings and your consciousness, what it is, to fully experience it, to become absorbed in it. And when we become thoroughly absorbed in the idea, whatever it is that we've chosen to focus on, when that idea becomes real in consciousness, when we have the realization, we are totally absorbed in the idea, then we consciously connect with the infinite mind. So your connection may not take the form of mystical experience as described by Happold, but even if you don't have that experience, just following this path creates wonderful changes to happen. Destructive feelings of want and envy and jealousy and anger and depression dissolve. Your awareness and thoughts are infused with positivity. Your emotional states are characterized by feelings of hopefulness, faith, peace, love, and happiness. Those spiritual feelings are also associated with more harmonious physical states. Changing our consciousness, we improve our health. You attract more good and more opportunities for good. Your more harmonious state of consciousness gives you an aura or a vibration that affects others for good. I'm aware that things are happening in the world of collective consciousness. Many people think we live in terrible times on the brink of worldwide catastrophe. The general mood might be one of anxiety. And as a historian, I know that such feelings have arisen in every era, just as feelings of hope and optimism have arisen in every era. There have been fearful, pessimistic people and hopeful, optimistic people in every era. The mood of humanity has continually shifted between these two poles. The greatest fears of humanity have never quite materialized, and nor have the highest hopes. But there is, and there can be, a shift. Can you help the mood of humanity shift toward optimism and hope towards this spiritual consciousness? Of course. Of course you can. You can recognize that things that appear to be going wrong still and still have, you can recognize that things appear to be going wrong and still have the Christ consciousness, peace and love and powerful faith as you move through your life. Your consciousness of inner divinity flows from the infinite mind into the collective consciousness. Know that you are not alone in this work. There are more people on earth than ever before who are attuned to the divine within. Together, regardless of appearances, we are gradually infusing the global consciousness with peace, love, health, prosperity, and enlightenment. So keep up the good work. Thank you.